Okay, I'm very, very excited. This is such a wonderful program. I don't know if you could hear it in my voice. I think we're all excited just to be together, even though we are alone in solitude and we're at home. And this is, for me, this has become a quick highlight of my week. I'm so happy to see all of you. Thank you all so much for being here. Before we start the program, what we're starting to do now is every week we're putting the spotlight on one of you to share a little bit about your experiences with this whole coronavirus and with this program. If you're enjoying the Shabbat table, we're very fortunate to have with us a new friend, David Eliyahu from Great Neck. David, the floor is yours. Share with us a few ideas, maybe a thought on the Parsha, anything at all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is David. I'm from Great Neck, New York, and I'm really happy to be here. And in order to talk about my Shabbat table experience, I feel like I have to talk about my experience with Shabbat in general first. So over the last two years or so, I was on the path about learning more about myself and my Jewish identity for quite a while. And I officially committed to being Shomer Shabbat after a few weeks after attending my first Young Professional Shabbat table, arranged and hosted by Rabbi Baruch Van. And through this program, he enabled us the opportunity to make meaningful connections with other like-minded Jews in the context of Shabbat during the pre-corona days. And I was able to see what the true beauty of Shabbat actually is. So in my experience, some often view the observance of Shabbat as something that makes them lose opportunities throughout the week. But I feel like they also need to take time to consider the opportunities that it presents to them. Hashem would never ask us to do anything that would not benefit us in the long term. So moving on to the Shabbat table program, having the opportunity to hear these wonderful speakers and meet so many new faces through this program has inspired me to get into the Shabbat mood every week and has filled the void, so to speak, of not being able to physically attend Shabbat celebrations with family and friends and whatnot. So I want to just briefly move into discussing a little bit about the Parsha. So this week's Parsha discusses the time of Shemitah, which is like the Shabbat of the land. To discuss it briefly, during the last 7 years during the last year of a 7-year cycle, every Jewish farmer has to take a year off of working the land, giving the land the opportunity to rest, so to speak. And in doing so, the Jews have to rely on the idea that Hashem will provide for them throughout the year that they can't farm. So I want to make a connection between this and my commitment when I began starting to keep Shabbat, because this idea of having faith, complete faith in Hashem, came to life right before my eyes. So I was originally struggling with keeping Shabbat because I was hesitant about giving up the job I had at the time, which required me to work on Saturdays. And eventually, after going to more classes and learning more about my Jewish identity, I decided to quit the job and have faith that Hashem wouldn't ask his people to do anything that would cause them harm, thus having faith that he would provide and help me through this doubt that I was having. And as a professional musician, I also had to start giving up Saturday gigs and whatnot, but I still had faith. And then a few short weeks later, after giving up those jobs, Hashem blessed me with an even better job at my dream job as a school orchestra teacher, which does not interfere or compromise my Shabbat commitment. And I want to stress that this reward for taking up Shabbat is different for everyone, because everyone has different tests in life, but this is how it turned out for me. And I hope everybody could find meaningful meaning in their Shabbat observance. And I wanted to thank you all, the Shabbat table, for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight, and wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom and peace and health, and to you and your families. Thank you so much.
And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest speaker. And this is a very, very special individual. This is Rabbi Menachem Tendler of U City Shul, who has a national reputation of really making Judaism exciting and engaging for people. And we really appreciate his time. Thank you so much for being with us. And the floor is yours, Rabbi. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I didn't know I was known all over the country, but that's pretty cool. I'm a little hermit over here, so I just know what goes on here in St. Louis. First off, hello, everybody. And now it's already nighttime, so in Judaism, it's Friday. So happy Erev Shabbos. I want to thank Rabbi Avi Roberts for for asking me to do this and for this honor. It's always frightening to me. I'm not this big circuit speaker. So it's frightening to like speak to people I'm not familiar with. And truthfully, so much of our personal growth comes through time that we actually spend together. That's really how we get to know each other, developing together in life. But perhaps, since I believe Rabbi Roberts asked me, because I do love life and I do love Shabbos, Shabbat. I'm Ashkenaz, so I do say Shabbos, so just bear with me as I talk. Perhaps there are some perspectives that can be shared, which will allow for some further discussion following this talk. So it's a funny thing when it comes to hearing people talk that you never met. For some reason, there's people who fit the perfect bill as a public speaker. They're polished. They figured everything out. They know how to stand just right, use their vocals properly. Everything looks phenomenal on paper. And then when you show up to their speech, it's like, ain't nothing happened. Like, what was that? You know, and then there's other people that are totally not polished at all. And they're the opposite of a public speaker. And then we just listen in. We're kind of connected. There's something there that draws us in. And sometimes it's like a hit or miss. You never know. So it's like a risk. Now that you're all sitting here listening to me, you don't know what you're getting, you know? So I'm not sure what category I'm going to fall into for everybody. But my prayer is that the thoughts that I've put together to share here this evening are helpful, and they can hopefully set the proper tone for this evening's topic, which is Oneg Shabbos, which means the enjoyment of Shabbos. So here we go. About 5 years ago, my shul, I'm the rabbi in a shul called U City Shul, a congregation here in University City, Missouri. We had a brand new Torah scroll, a brand new Sefer Torah written for our shul. And in addition to the very high monetary value, it's tens of thousands of dollars to have a Torah written, it's years of work for a scribe, but we also have the priceless value of the Torah to the Jewish people. So when we approach a Torah scroll, we're not like, oh my goodness, this thing was 60 grand, holy cow. This is the Torah of the Jewish people. It's much more than that. You can't put a price tag. So I wanted this brand new Torah brought. It was written in Israel, it was sent to New York, and I had to get it from New York to St. Louis. And I couldn't find anybody to personally bring it to St. Louis. I wasn't comfortable having it shipped. According to Jewish law, there's no issue whatsoever. I just felt I wanted somebody hugging it, taking it with them to the shul. It shouldn't get lost, you know, in transit. And I couldn't find anybody. So I was like, you know what, big deal. I'll hop on a flight, St. Louis, nonstop to Newark, right near Manhattan. And I'll take a 2-hour flight, rent a car, pick up the Torah, 2-hour flight, nonstop back to St. Louis. We're good to go. All right. But the question was, I was concerned that the airline would ask me to check the Torah in underneath. I didn't want to do that. Once I'm checking underneath, there's always a chance of things, you know, ending up in Hoboken. So I didn't want to take that risk with the Torah. I wanted to keep it with me. So I didn't know what to do. I knew it was too big to be a carry-on. So I called up the airline and I asked them, can I purchase a one-way ticket back from Newark to St. Louis for my Torah? So they told me, sure, no problem. All you need to do is purchase a ticket under your name, purchase then an additional ticket with your name and make up any middle initial. Okay, so my name is Menachem Tendler. So I booked a ticket for me, Menachem Tendler. I booked another one, I still remember, was Menachem H. Tendler, Y-H, I don't know. Not sure why I chose that letter. And this way we'll know it's really 2 separate seats that are needed. It's not a double booking. You'll explain to them 1 seat's for you, 1 seat's for whatever item you're bringing, you're good to go. Fantastic. This is amazing, right? No risk over here, following protocol, I'm good to go. So I fly into New York, we pick up the Torah for the shul, head back to Newark Airport. I want to make sure I was there early in case there was any issues. I would have ample time to work it out beforehand. And it turns out this was a good idea to get there early, because when I showed up at the terminal, they had no clue what I was talking about. They said there's no such thing. The airline policy is only humans can purchase seats. There's no such thing as buying a seat for your suitcase, for a Torah, no such thing. So I explained to them, I said, listen, I called up, look, I purchased the 2 one-way tickets, one with my name, one with the middle initial. This is what they told me, nothing doing. So I asked to speak to the supervisor. She comes to the desk, very sweet woman. She comes to the desk and she explains to me that perhaps the person who I spoke to originally on the phone didn't realize that the airline policy for allowing items to be ticketed is strictly limited to large musical instruments. When bands were uncomfortable checking their things in, it's strictly limited to large musical instruments. Like a good Jew with a Talmudic mind, what I do, I took my Torah, I turned it sideways, I started banging on the wooden poles. And I said, hey, the parchment is my music notes. I got my poles. It's an instrument. Let me take it with me. So she says, 1 minute, let me go see if that works, if that falls under our policy. So she leaves for a couple minutes. She comes back and she says, well, actually, in our policy, it only, this was Southwest Airlines, by the way, if anyone wants to check this out. In our policy, it only allows for purchasing a seat for a cello. So that wasn't happening. I could pray all I want. I wasn't turning this thing, I wasn't changing it around no matter how hard I prayed. I wasn't willing to check it in underneath. They told me FedEx, the FedEx headquarters just around from Newark Airport, you still have a couple hours till your flight. You could probably drop it off. I was like, no, I flew in purposely to take, for this leg of the trip, to take it with me. I didn't want to do it. So I said to the supervisor, I said, listen, let me explain something to you. I understand you need to do your job of following protocol. Let me explain where I'm coming from. I said, this scroll is the holiest book for all the Jewish people. I cannot bring myself to take the risk of checking it underneath and letting it out of my sight. 3,300 years ago, the entire Jewish nation stood at Mount Sinai. We received the holy words of this Torah. We got to figure this out. We got to work together. There's got to be a way around the airline policy. So she says to me again, she says, 1 minute, let me go check this out. So she leaves. She comes back and she says to me, we figured it out. Don't worry. The airline policy also allows for people to purchase additional seats for artifacts. Your scroll is 3,300 years old, certainly falls under that policy. You're good to go. Good to go. So I was like, I'm not going to argue with her whether this was written 3,300 years ago or not. I'm like, you're letting me take a seat? I'm taking my seat. She called ahead to the gate to make sure I wouldn't have a problem. She says, there's a rabbi showing up. He's got this thing, this artifact. It's very important to the entire Jewish people. Make sure everything goes smoothly for him. I get to the gate. I'm boarding before the pre-boarders. I put my seatbelt on. You know, they had this joke with the kids. Why was the person traveling with the Torah put the seatbelt? To make it a safer Torah, you know, make it safer. So I'm like, yes, I put a seatbelt on my Torah. Yeah, it's a real safer Torah. All right, I'm getting all excited. I haven't, you know, my kid joke, fantastic. And as they say, all's well that ends well. All right, cool. Fine, that's my Sefer Torah, one of my Sefer Torah stories on this journey. But this got me thinking. Here I was, it was in 2015, right? It was 5 years ago. So I'm all excited. I'm able to secure a brand spanking new Sefer Torah, perfectly written, amazing for our community to be used in the year 2015. And everybody at the terminal in Newark Airport is viewing it like an artifact. So I got to thinking to myself, all right, so we have a discrepancy. Who's correct? Or better yet, a better question we can ask ourselves is, which approach is true? Which approach to the Torah is true? Is this a Torah of 2015? Or is this a Torah of 3,300 years ago? And let's bring this question into Shabbat. What's Shabbat? So we say, oh, Shabbos, beginning of all creation, ancient history. God rested on the seventh day, whatever that means. All right? Was God out of breath? Was he tired? God, it was a crazy week. Kick up my legs, let me enjoy Shabbat. The sages tell us that God created the world with 10 utterances. All right? He took a breath 10 times, whatever that means. He wasn't out of breath, that he needed a rest, like he needs a Shabbat after a long week. It can't just be that God rested from work however long ago, and therefore forever we need to sit here and stop doing work too. That's way too shallow. Too shallow. That's history. It's too ritualistic. We don't do rituals in Judaism. Everything that we do, there's a current message for 2020 in everything that our beloved Torah teaches us. It's not ancient. It's not out of touch. We just need to delve to understand. How does this apply to me in my life, in my situation, right now, on this date, in this time? So let's start to scratch the surface of what we can accomplish with Shabbos and how to understand its current practicality. So I want to explain it by quoting a piece of Talmud. I'm going to try to keep it I'm trying to not get too technical. It's a fascinating piece of Talmud. This Talmud tells of one of Judaism's most famous converts, okay? One of Judaism's most famous converts was a very, very righteous man by the name of Onkelos, all right? Now, if you open up many books of Torah, on the page, you'll find the verse of Torah, and right on the side, you'll find the commentary of Onkelos. He was a person born non-Jewish, converted to Judaism, and became the sage, the righteous Torah scholar. We're obviously dealing with a man that not only converted, but brought the entire Jewish nation to very high levels of Torah understanding. He himself came from a family of royalty. So the Talmud tells us, this is in Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 11a. Anybody wants to go through the entire story, it's page 11a in Tractate Avodah Zarah. But here's what the Talmud relates. It tells us that Emperor Hadrian found out that Onkelos, who was his nephew, came from royalty. Hadrian found out that Onkelos, his nephew, had accepted the Jewish religion. And not only that, he was one of the foremost scholars. So the Emperor Hadrian was beside himself. What's going on in my family? Pathetic, can't happen. And he sent a group of soldiers to arrest Onkelos and bring him to Rome in chains. This is what the Talmud says. The first group of soldiers arrive. Onkelos greets them in a very friendly manner. He starts talking to them about religion. And the Talmud tells us the words that he spoke to them, they were very impressed, and they threw themselves at his feet, and they begged him as a leading rabbi to allow them to become his students, and they didn't return to Hadrian. That's what the Talmud says. Okay, let's keep going on in the story, and then we'll ask the simple question. Says the Talmud, Hadrian sends a second group of soldiers. He sees the first ones ain't coming back. So he sends a second group of soldiers, braver, and he instructs them, bring Onkelos to me in chains. This time he gave orders, no discussions about religion, arrest him, bring him, nothing doing. Onkelos welcomes them again very warmly, and he says, I know my uncle, Hadrian, must have told you not to have any discussions with me, and it's your responsibility to obey his command. You don't have to talk to me, but I want to ask you a question. I'm allowed to talk to you. In the Roman court, the common soldier carries the torch for the officer carries the torch for the general, and the general for the emperor. Tell me, who does the emperor carry the torch for? So they said the emperor doesn't carry for anybody. He's the emperor. Buck stops here. That's it. He's not carrying the torch. So Onkelos tells him, yeah, isn't that interesting? You know, the God of the Jewish people, despite his greatness and being the manufacturer of everything, still deemed it fit to hold the torch for every last Jew with a pillar of fire for 40 years while we were in the wilderness. You know what? The way it works by us is that instead of the lowers working for the hires work for the lowers. God actually works for us. And the Talmud says these words left a lasting impact, and they immediately gave up their mission and asked to study Torah under Onkelos. Okay, so Hadrian's 0 for 2. He's 0 for 2. We're playing baseball. He's got an 0-2 count. So now he's got a third opportunity. So he takes a company of troops, the highest officers. Don't talk to him. Don't listen. Bring him. The messengers arrive. They start to carry out the emperor's orders without delay. They lead Onkelos out of the house, and as he leaves his house, he reaches up and kisses the mezuzah. These messengers are gazing at this guy. You don't kiss in your door? What's wrong with you? What's your problem? All right? Who kisses their door? So, but they're not allowed to talk to him. So Onkelos says, you know, usually an emperor sits inside the palace and the guards protect from outside. You know what's strange? By the Jewish people, we sit inside and our leader sits outside and protects us to make sure nothing harms us inside our homes. And the Talmud says they heard this and they also asked to become students of Torah. Okay, fine. There's a lot to talk about this, but here I want to ask a basic question, and this question is actually asked by Rav Shlomo Wolbe, Zechron Livracha, passed away about a decade ago, one of the greatest thinkers, lived in Israel. And he asks, you know something? This Talmud sounds like absolute Jewish propaganda. Does it make any sense? You're going to have 3 groups of loyal troops. They hear a few explanations about Torah, and all of a sudden they're going to go ahead and turn everything over, turn their lives around. Who among us when hearing a Devar Torah, you hear a Torah thought, you hear an explanation, whatever it is, am I going to go ahead, give up my role on the spot as a lead officer if I'm serving in an army who dedicated my entire life to my king? We're going to assume that these soldiers were stable people. We're going to assume they had stuff going for them, all right? So what's up with that? You can pull propaganda out of anything. You know, they have these all, I find, I'm going to say it, because you have in all these religions, you have on YouTube, whatever it is, people, they put up videos of like, there was a kid, 8 years old, he died, he went up to the next world, he comes back, he knew things that was impossible. It must be that Jesus is right, because he saw Jesus. And then the Muslims have the same thing, and so do the Jews. All right, the mind is a powerful thing. Who's right, who's wrong, I don't know, but everybody's going to find a story and make themselves sound correct. As for Shlomo Volba, he says on this Talmud, is this propaganda or is there more to Talmud, as we know there always is? So I want to share with you how he explains this Talmud. And I'm only going to discuss this evening the first group that came to Onkelos. The second two groups I'm going to leave for now just for time. All right? Let's discuss the first group. What happened? They show up. Here's what happened. Hadrian sends them. They show up and they start discussing with Onkelos. They start talking to him about religion. What did they talk about? Here's what they spoke about. Onkelos says to them, you're good soldiers to Hadrian. Let me ask you a question. Do you have holy people in your life? And they said, certainly. A lot of special people. He said, who? He said, well, the holiest people are our priests, those who lead us before God. He says, what's holy about them? What makes them holy? So they responded, well, they're celibate, they fast, they stay off of alcohol. He says, can all you be holy? Can you be a priest? Can you be holy? So he said, no, if we'd all be holy, then the religion wouldn't continue, right? The world can't continue if everybody's celibate. No children, no parties, nothing. So Onkelos opens up a Torah scroll and he says, let me show you a verse. God tells Moses to tell the Jewish people, Kedoshim Tihu, all of you are supposed to be equally holy. How's that possible? Because in Judaism, holiness is different. In our current world, Onkelos was saying, holiness is a person to you who rises above the world. Something separate from nature. A person who separates from family, a person who doesn't work, doesn't sleep, doesn't eat. Yet by the Jewish people, holiness is just the opposite. It's a person who takes nature, everything that you enjoy, and you live it to its fullest. One who's involved in the world, builds the world, works hard, lives life to its fullest, yet understands there's boundaries to it. One who respects their parents, owns a field, yet works the land, but leaves over for the poor, for the unfortunate. One who walks around the streets and makes sure to speak properly, without gossip, without slander, doesn't hurt people's feelings. One who deals with mistakes of others on an hourly basis. We don't separate from others. One who has to put up with an annoying parent, sibling, colleague, whatever it is, yet still not bear a grudge or take revenge. That is holiness. Our matriarchs and patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, they weren't rabbis. They were incredible people who were accomplishing truth in life. They were shepherds. Onkelos told them, he said, you know what Judaism is? Rabbis aren't holy. Rabbis don't, just because you're called a rabbi doesn't make you holier than anybody else. Holiness is when I'm put into a situation and I take this nature, this reality that I'm in, and I use it with beauty. I use it properly. An average Jew is just as holy as a rabbi when we act properly. And when this group heard this concept from Onkelos, they said, you mean an average Jew who does the right thing is just as holy as a famous rabbi? This was a powerful truth that they had to figure out. They needed to learn more about. It's not a nation of rabbis. We are a nation where every individual has equal ability to achieve the highest levels. I just need to be the perfect me. That's a pretty darn good ROI. That's a good return on investment. And they realized they're not going to be offered this anywhere else. I want to find out. As a side point, you ever wonder why I always wondered, why are Jews always dancing in circles? We're always holding hands. We're always holding hands and dancing in circles, right? You go to a wedding, go to bar mitzvah, everybody's dancing in a circle. What's up? What's up with Jews in circles? Okay? So somebody once explained to me, they said that if you walk into a club, so some are in front, some are in back, some people are getting more attention than others. Some people don't even notice they're dancing, right? When you're in a circle, however, everyone is equidistant from the center, from the core. Nobody's any closer to the core of reality than anybody else. And this is why Jews dance in a circle. I'm not in front of you, you're not in front of me. We're all equidistant to that core, to that truth, to that reality. Some of us have a stronger magnetic pull to it than others, but it doesn't matter. We never fall far from truth. We never fall far from Hashem. And this is the phenomenal creative power of Shabbos as well. Each of us, from the story of Unclus, understand that we are, you, are in an equal position to utilize Shabbos and take from it all of the gifts, the joys, the blessings that Shabbos have to offer. None of us own Shabbos more than anybody else. What joys, what blessings are we talking about? Every joy and blessing in the world is wrapped up into Shabbos. God himself says this. The Talmud states, God tells Moshe, go inform the Jewish people. I've got one present that's going to blow them away. Go tell them I have a special gift in my storehouse waiting just for them. The Shabbat, the Shabbos Shemo, its name is Shabbos. Shabbos is the most precious gift. Now let me tell you something, okay? Rabbi Kappenstein, when we started, said that I'm a pretty good power forward. Maybe yeah, maybe no. When I taught younger grades, everybody's like, oh, Rabbi, tell me, what a fantastic ball player. All these 11 and 12-year-olds, while I'm offering them $1,000, they can beat me in a one-on-one, think I'm phenomenal. I'm playing an 11 and 12-year-old, and I'm 6'3". Okay? It doesn't mean I'm necessarily good. Doesn't mean I could shoot a ball. But you have Steph Curry. You got some good shooters, some good ball players that walk around like, hey, this Tendler dude is pretty good. All right, so now you take a second look. Something I want to find out about. Maybe this guy could shoot something. We're talking about the creator of the world, God. It's not like some random person's like, hey, go try out Shabbat. It's pretty cool. This is God telling us the most precious thing I put into the world is called Shabbos. That makes it a whole nother statement. And God says, wrapped up into the Shabbos is every blessing and every joy that you can imagine in this world, and I want you to enjoy it. That's the whole purpose of it. The whole purpose is to enjoy the entire thing. So what is Shabbos? What is it? It's a gift. By definition, that's what it is. On Shabbos, every single one of us are in a very special place where everything becomes okay. Everything's okay on Shabbos. It's just a different reality. On Shabbos, everything is okay. And when everything is okay, when we have a gift, you know what we do? We enjoy it. We celebrate it. Oneg Shabbos, the enjoyment of Shabbos, is really defining for us what each of our Shabbosos should look like. It's an all-out celebration. It's exactly what it is. It's a party. And when we attend the celebration, there's good food, there's relaxation, there's excitement, there's joy, there's anxiety that leads up to celebration sometimes, right? Preparing the party. There could be anxiety. Is everything ready? Are we doing it right? But once the party starts, we're in. We're celebrating. That's what it is. That Oneg Shabbos is something that this is Oneg Shabbos, is something that we're celebrating. To end off, each of us, perhaps, can think to ourselves, how can I personalize this gift? How can I personalize this opportunity of Oneg Shabbos, the celebration of Shabbos? And perhaps this can be the discussion in the breakout rooms following this talk. Sharing ideas. What works personally for me that can help me increase my joy of Shabbos? Is there a way we can spread the joy of Shabbos and bring it to others on board so they can join in our celebration? Perhaps it's a special food, special cocktail, special drink, quality time with somebody else. Whatever it is, Shabbos is when we take nature, like our forefathers, our matriarchs and our patriarchs, the shepherds, just like them, we're also working. They took their unique worlds, they channeled it, they walked in it, they were joyous with it, and they attained perfection. What Oneg Shabbos does, it allows us to be present in the present of Shabbos. And I want to end off by extending to you, each of you, the greatest blessing that I ever received. I lost my dad 7 years ago and my mom a little over 2 years ago. In my last conversation with my mother, it was a day before she passed. I had flown in from St. Louis to Baltimore. That's where my parents resided. And I went to visit her. We knew the end was near. And I was leaving back to St. Louis. This is the day she passed the next day. I was leaving back to St. Louis, and I walked in to tell my mother that I'm heading back to the airport. Now, in the Tendler family, we don't say goodbye. We never say goodbye. We don't say goodbye to each other. It's too hard to say goodbye. What we say to each other in Yiddish is Seid gesund. Go in health. Stay healthy, stay well. Okay? So I walked into my mother's room. I said, Mom, Seid gesund. Be well. And instead of her responding to me with her usual words of Seid gesund, she tells me, she says, Menachem, may every day of your life be Shabbos. And I said, Amen. This for sure was the greatest blessing anybody has ever given me. And I would like to extend that blessing to all of you. May the joy, the pleasure, and the excitement of the gift of Shabbos accompany us every day of our lives. Thank you so much for listening, and Seid gesund. Stay well.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Tendler. That was incredible. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. You definitely have that gift of public speaking. So before we break you out into breakout rooms, and I'm going to explain how that's going to work, I just wanted to share with you, if everybody could please quickly look at your chat box. I'm going to share with you a new Facebook group that we have created just for this group. Okay, it's going to be a closed group, and I'm going to share it again just in case you missed it. Okay, this is just for you. Your rabbis will also share this link with you, and you'll be approved. If you don't get approved immediately, that's fine. So this is going to be a nice way for us to share information, to share maybe some pictures of how we're doing with the Shabbat table, and how great it is to have this connection, even though we are on lockdown and quarantine. Okay, we now move to the breakout rooms, and the breakout rooms is a great way for us to get a little bit more intimate with each other and to have an opportunity for everybody to engage in the conversation. Obviously, it's hard to do that with 100 people on at the same time. And so the question that Rabbi Tendler challenged us to address is, how can I or how do I personalize the celebration and gift of Shabbat? We want to be enjoying it. We want it to be special. What is it that we can do, or what is it that we are already doing, okay, to contribute to the celebration of Shabbat, to the celebration of Oneg Shabbat? Okay, so we got some feedback that you all would like a little bit more time with the breakout rooms. It's not going to be too long, but in the coming few minutes, you are going to have the opportunity to engage with fellow young professionals from around the country and to discuss this idea, and we will circle back and close after the breakout rooms. So without further ado, we're going to ask our technician over here to help us out, and just follow the link and click the button to join your breakout room. We will see you back in a couple minutes.